The sweeping health care overhaul passed by Congress in 2010 has survived a Supreme Court challenge and is now the law of the land. Congressman Ted Poe joins us for today's Congressional Corner to talk a lot more about this and many other things because there's a lot going on right now. Good morning to you.
Good morning. Busy week last week.
Boy, it was. And now we're sort of trying to figure it all out and what it means to us. Your thoughts on this ruling? So many people surprised by it. What were your feelings when the ruling came down?
I was surprised Roberts called it a tax and made it a tax. Everybody thought it was not a tax, but he said he decreed it was a tax. So now we're faced with the bill being the law. When Republicans come back in next week, we will repeal the whole bill again. After the election, if the president changes and the Senate changes, we'll repeal the bill again, the whole thing. So that's out there. But the bill, the law, Americans can expect a couple of things. They can expect, first of all, the mindset of health care to change. Now, government has basically now taken over health care. They can also expect it to be more expensive for them personally with their insurance premiums and also paying a tax if they refuse to provide for insurance for themselves.
As you can imagine, when all this came out last week, we had every medical expert we could think of here talking about this, and their deal is prevention. We are going to have to really participate in preventative care, take better care of ourselves so that people can afford to live, basically, so that they're not paying these prices. What is your thought on that?
The legislation promotes prevention, and it also really will allow the government to deny certain types of procedures. So the government will make those decisions. But it is a preventative medicine type of proposal. But it's more expensive. That's the key.
Right. And we're not going to see any changes regardless of what happens for quite a while, a couple years?
That 2014, the entire legislation takes effect. Right now, people who are on insurance, they have a contract with their insurance company. That will all stay in effect. Children under the age of 26 that are on their parents' benefits, they stay on the parents' premiums or insurance as well. So basically no changes right now.
Well, as you mentioned earlier, a lot happened last week. Let's also talk about Arizona's very controversial immigration law. 3 out of 4 of it batted down, but the thing that stands is show the papers. So where does that stand with Texas? Where do we go from here? Because it was also, a big question here. Would we follow what happened there in Arizona?
Don't know if Texas will implement this procedure or not. The Supreme Court, as we know, has ruled it constitutional for a peace officer, when arresting someone for another crime, to inquire as to their status, immigration status, if there's reasonable suspicion that they're not legally here. Texas may not go that route. Texas is going to go more, as it is doing now, on border security, preventing primarily the drug cartels from coming in the United States. That is Texas's thought process so far.
And we heard Governor Rick Perry say that was not right for Texas, that what they're doing in Arizona is not right here. Is there a thought of what is right for our state?
Well, like I said, I think the mentality is here, get the federal government to do its job on border security, but also Texas is working to secure its own borders right there on the Rio Grande River with some of the tougher law enforcement, primarily drug cartels coming in the U.S.
Well, while we're here, we have to ask you one final thing, because there, again, so much happened last week. For the first time ever, a sitting attorney general held in contempt. So what are your thoughts with Eric Holder on this? Because a lot of the thought last week was it's just symbolic, that nothing really happens because of that. And now another step has to be taken.
Well, what has occurred, he's been held in contempt for 2 violations. One is a civil contempt and a criminal contempt. Remember, bipartisan members of Congress voted to hold him in contempt. He has to produce those papers, the documents, to show what happened in Fast and Furious. He has not done that. Congress has ordered him to do so. We will go to court and have a federal judge rule on that procedure. Will he be required under a federal trial to bring those documents? The criminal contempt, punishing him for failure to bring the documents, the Justice Department's already said less than 24 hours later, we're not going to prosecute the Attorney General. So that's gone away. They're not going to prosecute him. So we still want the documents. The idea is not to keep holding him in contempt, but it's to get the documents. That's what we need, so we can find out what happened when Brian Terry was murdered. 200 Mexican nationals were murdered. Justice Department's been stonewalling giving the American people those documents. We're entitled to them, and we're going to get them.
All right, Congressman Ted Poe, you tell it like it is, and we're so thankful for that. Thank you for coming in.
Thank you, Melissa.
Just an honor to talk to you this morning.
Thank you.